songs.
Oh,
So
nice.
yes, and we are live now. But yeah, I was just double checking after I pressed the record button to make sure I wasn't live on her platforms. All right, welcome everyone to another amazing show on the One Moment Podcast. I'm your boy and your co-host Kevo. We have an amazing, awesome young lady. I think she's the fifth from across the way. I think something like that. We get very few from across the water, uh, but she's amazing. I literally the whole conversation we had pre-recording. I mean, we should have hit the recording as soon as you popped in. Boom. Right. Now, oh my gosh, she's awesome. And I think very similar interests across the board here in many respects of healthcare, the field of medicine, and I would even say society in
Probably.
for the most part. But I don't want to tell her story. I don't want to give it away. So listen, if anybody's checking in with us, please utilize your resources out there if you are ever triggered by anything that we say and do on our podcast, anything that you see that we do on social media. Utilize your resources, local emergency departments, crisis centers, call your psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, call somebody, a friend, mentor, sponsor, whoever you want to do, call. Utilize your resources. We're here for educational, for educational information only, and we're here also for a resource. So, with that being said, since we got the disclaimer out of the way, so social media don't shut us down, let's get to why we're here. How are you doing, Miss Christina?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here to just talk about these things that aren't often discussed, frankly. And I'm happy for all of those who are joining us. And yeah, my name is Christina Consalvos. I am a psychotherapist and I'm currently based in Portugal, but I was born and raised in the US. Um, I namely moved here for my health and my well being, and I have no regrets thus far. So just got to do what we got to do to take care of ourselves, whatever that looks like, and as long as it doesn't harm others, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I have to ask, okay, did you get your license in the US or did you transfer it over yonder? Like, I have to ask because I think you're the first therapist from across the way here on the show.
Mm, okay. Yeah. So I'm licensed in 4 different states in the US. And as long as my clients are in the state, I am safe to practice anywhere in the world. So I was nomadic for quite some time before deciding to like more so plant roots and find community here in Portugal.
All right.
Um,
I just figured it out. I'm packing up. I'm moving to Portugal.
do it. You're welcome. Everyone's welcome.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, are you still taking clients? I mean, I have to ask that. And if so, how can they contact you?
Sure. At this time, I do have a waiting list. However, I co facilitate a free support groups specifically for chronic illness. I may be opening more groups in the near future. I also host regular workshops. So, those are different ways to work with me in the interim if you'd like to remain on my waiting list.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, we were talking pre-recording about some very interesting information that I like to call it challenge the status quo just because I'm from the South and I'm from the US. And I guess you can say I got a little bit of rebellious streak in me. So that's what I'm gonna call it. Just yeah, just a wee bit. um, what are your thoughts on what we were talking about? Because we were talking about mainstream. I hope I get the term right here or the phrase right. Mainstream health care, mainstream medicine, things like that. Because I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah, our healthcare in the West is a huge problem for the most part because it's neither truly preventative or meant to heal chronic health concerns or get to the root of why we get sick in the first place. It's more symptom management, which can very often lead to like other symptoms, right? Because of side effects, so on and so forth. And I personally have my challenges with a doctor who meets with someone and doesn't ask them questions like, what are your stress levels like? What is your home environment like? What are your relationships like? Do you enjoy your job? How often do you get in the sun? What is movement like for you? What is your nutrition intake? Like, I mean, these types of questions that are so important and impactful. And if we could simply and not so simply work on managing that, right? Whether it's getting more sleep, getting more sunlight, lowering our stress. I mean, that can therefore impact so many symptoms without having potentially to go on a medication that will bring you even more symptoms. It's so yeah, I am a bit feeling challenged by that, but then I understand that medical school isn't they're not taught these things, right? It is about symptom management more than prevention or long-term care and understanding the root of why someone is sick at this moment in time. And I went through it as someone with chronic illness who nearly died from Lyme disease and a few other things all at once. I witnessed this firsthand before deciding to specialize in it. I witnessed doctors just give me diagnoses and throw medications at me without asking these really important questions. How is your nervous system? Let's start there. It wasn't until I found a doctor who really saw it all and took it seriously that my life shifted and changed. And I'd like to take this approach in my work as well. And we were talking earlier too about even modalities in mental health that have a time and place, just as Western medicine. I'm not knocking Western medicine. I want to make sure that's clear. Time and place for it. Like if I need emergent care or I have some like infection, oh man, like take me take me to receive that care. So I have respect for that entirely. I'm just saying that it is limited and that needs to be acknowledged. And we consider this like what is it? Like this is like our main healthcare and
Mm.
then everything else is alternative, but ironically it's so Western medicine, allopathic medicine is so new to us. If we really look at the timeline, I think it's technically alternative in the grand scheme of medical care, right? We look at just again we were talking earlier about indigenous medicine and so on and so forth, but in terms of mental health, like cognitive behavioral therapy and some others, whether that's what did we say, DBT and mm,
DBT, motivational interviewing,
yeah,
psychodynamic psychoanalysis. Yeah,
analysis.
I mean,
Yeah, and yeah, I've witnessed on both sides of the couch. I've been in therapy for many years myself, so I've experienced different types of therapists and therapies and modalities, and then I get to see what they're like in real time in my work. And again, time and place, but limitations. And what I said earlier is we can't really talk our way out of trauma. We need to feel it to heal it. So overthinking, aka over intellectualizing, means that you're under feeling, right? So really being able to get into the body, feel safe enough to with the person you're working with, that can take a moment to get to that point of somatic awareness, to, as I say, irrigate what is
mm,
not ours, the shame, the trauma, the grief, whatever is that we're holding, whether it's from us or previous generations or both. We we collect it in the nervous system until we're ready to process it out. So I have, yeah, gotten to witness people heal themselves, right? In the work that I do, it's just by simply, providing the tools, the resources, and co-creating the space of a courageous space for them to start moving it through their body.
No. Well, no, and for me, I think if we look at Western medicine, you know, we've rushed so fast and head forward into this idea of a pill for every damn ill. You know, and I'm part of a committee. I'm not going to say any names about the committee because I love them to death. I respect everybody, and I'm not saying this on anything by any means. Like, no, no, no. And we help push bills to legislation. So what I say, if anybody from that committee hears me talking about this, I'm not knocking the committee. I'm not knocking anything we do. I love and appreciate and respect what we do and the mission, the organization, everything we do, and I'm super ecstatic to be a part of it. Uh, Not too long ago, we were given a proposal on a bill for like medication assisted treatment in institutions like jails, right,
Mm,
across the state, and so one of the things that I responded with is, the whole bill or the proposed bill was to get medication and treatment or medication in those institutions. And I responded back and I said, and this is what what my thought process was. I said, I said my fear is we're pushing the substance use field ever so faster into this freaking idea of medication for this, that, and a third, right? A pill for every damn ill. And I said, I don't want us to forget this idea of we need also therapy, right? There's
mm,
more than just this medication piece, you know.
mm,
And there's so many times you take there's this picture. I love this picture. I love it because it really I think makes sense, and I think it paints the picture of where we're at with Western medicine versus Eastern medicine, as I call it, or indigenous medicine. Um, they got two different lines with two different stands, right? One stand says, uh, basically a pill to help reset, right? And then the other line is basically like the hard way or the hard, long, slow way or something of that sort, right? And there's 100 people over here in this line, the line as far as like the pill for every damn ill approach. I want it now. I want it to be quick. I want it to
mm,
be this. I want it to be that.
mm,
And there's like one person in this line over here, and I think that's where I think that picture matches perfectly where Western medicine is. And I hate to see Western medicine go to this area of, where it's just medication. I had doctors do me the same way, um, diagnosed me with certain things, and they kept taking it back to certain areas of history, like yourself, right? Nobody once asked me what I was eating. Nobody once asked me what my nervous system says or was saying. Nobody asked me that. And so what got me to open up in some of this area, I was talking to I have received a call from a lady on my insurance company, and I answered the phone, and she was like, "Hey, my name is such and such. Do you have a few moments to talk to a health coach? Blah blah blah, so on and so forth." And I said some choice words to this lady. I'm like, "I don't know what the hell you calling me." Like I wasn't very nice. Uh, but she was, and then she had threw it back to me. She was like, she said something. She was asking me some questions. I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I deal with some of that stuff. What human doesn't?" She was like, "How about this? Give me 5 minutes, and then you can let me know." At the end. And so I'm like, all right, cool, 5 minutes. Right. And I started counting. But I tell you, it was the best relationship I ever had because it, the medicine that the doctors prescribed me, I had a medication induced suicide attempt.
oh,
Uh, I mean, it was just terrible. So that was just one of the things that I had. Medication that would just, it was just had severe reactions to the body, but I got doing what she was pushing me to do, which was indigenous based. Freaking loved it, fell in love with it. 10 did more work 10 on a 10 times the scale than what Western medicine did, and that's what sold me in indigenous practices, Eastern medicine, like all of that
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. What can I ask what you did that you feel like impacted you the most?
What impacted me the most, what she worked to push me in was her biggest thing was what was I eating? I mean, I had other things up there to get time management, like other things because social media management, all of that. But the biggest thing that she was pushing my for me to understand was what we put into our bodies comes out. Uh our bodies don't forget.
Mm,
About like the trauma book.
mhm.
Your body always remembers.
Yeah.
And so she was helping me to understand the physiology and what we put into our system. Everything we
Mm,
take in comes out some way.
mhm. Yeah. And, like, literally everything, like, our body hears everything we say, like, we think of digestion only as food, which is really important, but it also includes what we expose ourselves to, the music we listen to, the news, the people who we surround ourselves with. I mean, the everything. And, food is so important. Like I say, nutrient density. And for someone who's had like any mental health history, and then we have, eat like history of eating disorders as well. And over 90% of our serotonin is created in our gut, right? That's why they say our gut is our second brain. So if you are really nourishing yourself on a regular basis, with whole food ingredients, whatever makes sense for you, you likely will notice a difference in your mental and your physical health. There's the mind body connection is fierce. It's there. There's no denial of that. So I think that's amazing that someone asked you about that, talked to you about it, and that you were open, right? Because it takes two to tango, just just because someone says it. Because it's not like, let's make this clear. It's not like the fun and easy route in the sense of like, if I take this, I'm gonna feel better in this many days or weeks, versus like, doing this may take a minute to feel the impact. Um, it's yeah, it's hard work, and it's sustainable, and it's, wouldn't you say, it's completely worthwhile to go that slow route.
100%. No,
Yeah.
100%. I couldn't agree more. It's one of the
Yeah.
best decisions I ever made. Even and now, mind you, okay, for those of you who don't know me, I apologize to the woman. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry I came off a little bit blunt to you, right? Because I didn't know who she was. I didn't know if it was a scam or not,
Yeah.
right? But like when she and I had a freaking blast, she wanted to graduate me from the program. I said, whoa, 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 hold on now. You ain't just gonna work for me for like 4 or 5 months. Like, no, I'm willing to do not instead of once a week every 2 weeks. Right. And so that's the way it ended up being. But no, you're right, right. That goes to show you exactly what you're saying. We have Western medicine and it's got its time and place, but we also have indigenous practices, Eastern medicine, etc. They have their time and place. And
Mhm.
that's something that when I went to NADAC last year in Seattle, we had our
Mhm.
annual conference in Seattle. Uh, I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. But one of the things I have to say is, and I wanted to emphasize is to your point, NADAC is starting to push now in the last couple of years. You're starting to push indigenous and Eastern medicine into the clinical practice, into the medical practice. And so I think it's starting to somewhat shift into a different direction, if that makes any sense.
Completely. That's amazing, and I think, like, there's I'm witnessing it, it's beautiful, it's like a decolonization process that we're seeing, and even for myself in therapy practice, right, and what I learned in grad school and post-grad school, I'm like, "Is this in alignment with me?" For example, uh, the 50-minute to an hour mark of doing therapy. I never understood this because I'd be in the chair and we're at the mark and I'm going, I just warmed up. Like I literally just used the time to update you on my life. And now I need to hold the thought for next time we meet. That was harsh on my I remember that always feeling harsh on my nervous system. And so I started, really playing around with different time periods until I got to the point of until the client feels complete, which naturally happens usually between an hour and a half mark, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes a little longer. I leave enough space for this, but I start to see the magic, if you will, happen really around the hour mark where we are able to finally go in like, ah, I've updated you. Okay, now let's figure out where this is coming from or where this is in the body and the mind and the spirit. So it's also kind of what I was going to bring in is like following your intuition as a practitioner and as a client too. It's like, does this feel right? Does this feel good? Am I getting into it with this person I'm working with and trusting that, trusting if it feels right or not.
Ooh,
Um, yeah, yeah, for anything, right? Friendships, work environments, any relationship. It's it's rebuilding that trust with self and finding that power, definitely, and finding the wisdom of, I feel like, what we're experiencing. There's wisdom in everything we experience, even the worst of it.
I could not agree more. I think we all have a voice, and you're taking me down memory lane here, just so you know, because before the 60s, I think it was, right? And I'm not a big, huge person on like having exact date here or exact data, but I can talk in generalities for the most part. But it was before the 60s, we didn't have very many feminine theories, minorities, or when I say feminine theories, theories that are pushed and yeah, pushed by like minority type of people, right? Women, African American, Asians, things like that. Um, and so, but around that time frame, and if you even go back in your psychology history, like people will be able to read it. You know, we had women thought leaders and other minority thought leaders starting to step up and speak out. Um, and so I think you're right. We all have a voice because when I look at that, I see the change and I see the voices coming through in history and in the field. And even to this day, for an example, the COVID vaccine, for another example, I don't think the woman got much credit for it, but I think she should have. But there was an African American woman who helped develop the COVID vaccine. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? She she didn't get much credit, but it should have been. She should have gotten much more credit because, like, how often do things like this happen in Western medicine, right? And for me, it is about having a voice. You have to feel comfortable, also, because if you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to have a voice. And how do I feel comfortable to have a voice? I think you really hit the nail on the head. And I don't care where somebody's from, what somebody's history is, what somebody's background is. I think that relationship with myself is or with oneself is the most important
Mhm.
relationship anybody will ever have, and it's up to me to cultivate it. And sometimes I have to have your help to help cultivate it. And so I need to be able to have that rapport, that trust, that respect within our communication, within our relationship for any work to get done. And sometimes what does that look like? Like you said, sometimes it's not just a 45-minute deal. Sometimes it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I love that you really brought that up because I think that's tail law. We push this idea in Western medicine. Oh, you need, I think the CPT codes are what, 16 minutes at a minimum to 60 minutes max. And anything over 60 minutes, you don't get paid for it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yep. It's all, yeah, insurance based on insurance. And so, you know, I'm willing to get to be unpaid for that time. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because the payment I get to witness is incredible. Like, that's the payment for me, is getting to witness someone really, like you said, take back their power, find their voice, trust themselves, cultivate that relationship with themselves or God or source, whatever that looks like, and heal. And it's, I mean, I feel really honored and blessed. I think too, when and I think you can relate to this, like when you've walked the path of hurt, you know, and needing to heal yourself, being able to then take that and basically alchemize it, right? Into this like post traumatic growth where you get to now hold the lantern up for someone else with that knowledge, with that experience that you had. It's like, okay, I can look back, as horrible as it was then. It's like the reason I'm able to do this work now. Like, I'm thankful for it, actually, genuinely.
No.
All those
Yeah,
trials, all those tribulations.
100%. I
Yeah,
could not agree more. And I
yeah.
think that's where I I I advocate for Western medicine to get to a point in society where we are more focused on the patient than we are the dollar. We're more focused on the person than we are the number, right? It's not just an MRN number or a case number or what have you. They're a person who has dignity. It doesn't matter which religious ideal you go with here. I don't care whether it's Taoism or Islam or whatever, Christianity, Catholicism, what have you, Buddhism, Hinduism, same thing. But a person has dignity. They have honor. They have respect. They have loyalty. They have trust, right? Like, and I think it's about helping people to get back to that, and also demonstrating that in what we do. Um, Far too often, like I've seen people shoot that, go straight to the idea of medication. And, when I'm around, people know how my clinical practice is. So when I'm around, I think that is, as you said, it's got its place.
Mhm.
So when people know me and they kind of know how I operate and do, a lot of times they'll call on me, be like, yo, what do you think? Right. And they don't ask me for medical, for any type of medical decisions. Well, it's like, man, let's always try to do a clinical approach first. Now, if an individual's in a state of psychosis and they're self harm, like that's a different story. Like we're not talking about on that level, right? If there's cancer, stage 4 cancer, stage 3 cancer, what have you, like medication is going to be needed, right? Um, and there's many diagnoses out there that medication is absolutely 100% needed. But I
Yeah.
think we don't need to forget the importance of indigenous principles, indigenous practices.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my question to you is, how do you implement that in your clinical practice? Because, and I think that's the first question that anybody has asked so far.
Yeah?
Yeah, I
Here,
don't
you
think
mean?
anybody's asked. I don't think anybody's asked any questions so far.
So, yeah, a couple of things with that. With the Yeah, it's amazing, and I trust and I want to believe that we're headed in a direction where we see these, both all these modalities interweaving. And I know of doctors who really get to hold both. I've met them, I've been seen by them. So there are doctors who are asking these questions, who are more concerned with the human in front of them than the dollar bill sign, right? or simply what insurance will or will not cover. And I really have high respect for these practitioners across the board. And I think of like Dr. Gabor Mate. Are you familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate? He specializes in addiction, chronic illness. Um, he's based in Canada. He has a great documentary called Wisdom of Trauma,
I'm
and
gonna have to
his
check them out
latest,
then.
yeah, gotta check him out. I'm such a fan. He like changed my life when I was on my own healing journey with one of his books called When the Body Says No, which is a pretty obvious title. At some point, if you don't say no, if you don't step into your authenticity, your voice, your truth, your body will likely end up saying no for you in different ways for different people. And the latest book he has is Myth of Normal, which I enjoy because I've read all of his books at this point, and it combines all of them plus the latest research. So, yeah, his method, if you will, of he's using a little bit of everything, but his focus is namely on understanding the root, the reason why someone makes the decisions they make, right? Why their body is why they end up getting cancer or MS or other autoimmune diseases. We're finding out autoimmune diseases often tied to women not speaking, because it's mostly women. I think it's 80% of women, or 80% of autoimmune diseases. It's a women's disease, if you will. So it's because they're not speaking their truth. And when we're in a fawning response, which is part of fight or flight, we have fight or flight, we have freeze response, and then we have fawning response. So fawning is the codependency. It's putting people or things before yourself. It's pressing the override button when I can't say yes to this thing, but you feel like you have to. It's a survival response. It's a trauma and survival response learned. All of these are responses, the four F's from childhood. And it helped us survive when we were young. However, at this point, as adults, it often is making us sick because we're not prioritizing ourselves. So healing that is very important. It Because essentially it's a chronic stress response, any of those four F's. And when we're in a chronic stress response, there's more. What happens? We produce more cortisol. More cortisol, how does that impact our immune system function and our autonomic nervous system function? Like if you imagine are running from a tiger for years and years, and I was one of these people for years since childhood because of my my compounded trauma that ended up turning into complex trauma. You know, my body was so tired from running all of these years. It's like when I finally had such horrible, like horrific fatigue, it was like, yeah, okay, this makes sense, right? Ultimately, whether it's addiction or chronic illness, we're running away from feeling our feelings. It's just
Mm.
different paths and ways. And that's why he specializes in both. You're like, what do those two have to do with one another? And so often, like, people have both. Because they're self-medicating to feel better in their body, something that feels uncomfortable, whether it's chronic pain or another symptom where they notice, and I've seen this many times in my practice, alcohol calms down that symptom. So in my practice, to answer your question, first things first is the nervous system. We've got to get the nervous system out of a chronic stress response into a rest and repair, rest and digest state, parasympathetic. We go from sympathetic, which is the reptilian brain. All it cares about is getting you from point A to point B of safety, doesn't care about your happiness, your well-being, your success, none of that. It just wants your survival. And again, even if it's at the expense of your joy. So we'd like to step away from that, convince the brain, convince the body, convince the nervous system that at some point you maybe were really in a fight or flight, or so you needed to be. but you don't need to be anymore. And we do that with co-regulation. That's what you hope to, as a practitioner, you hope that you are co-regulating and allowing the person you're working with, your patient, your client, whoever, to feel safe, ultimately to feel courageous, um, so that they can just come to the space and take off the mask. They no longer have to put a mask on. At least for you, like that's a start. We've got to start someplace. And as someone who's neurodivergent and works with a lot of people who are neurodivergent, the mask is a real thing, um, in order to survive what we think is society. So that's the first thing. And then we look, as being an integrative psychotherapist, I look at all aspects of a person's life, because it's never just one thing. I like to know what the health looks like in the home, even from the products you use. You're using chemical products because your body takes in everything you expose it to. What are your relationships like? Do you feel safe in your relationships? What's your work environment like? How are you sleeping? What is your food intake like? How often is it? Um, and then from there, I can also refer out to, if needed, for extra support to the right people, to help support in these specific areas. But I think it's important. I look at everything, because the brain is not separate from the body. People will come to me and they'll say that my doctor says it's all in my head, and I laugh because I'm like, that would mean, even if that's true, like those are two separate things. Like, no, they're connected. There is a mind, body, spirit connection. So as I see the person in front of me feel more and more comfortable, safe, courageous, even though everything I do is trauma and somatic informed, we start to go deeper and deeper as I see their window of tolerance beginning to widen, right? Because if I go, people come to me, I want to do EMDR. If I go into EMDR without that regulation piece and ensuring that your nervous system is in a place where, if we open up Pandora's box in there, that like you're going to be able to like be with it without it causing a flare up or triggering you. I mean, these are important factors. I mean, people are often coming to me with active suicidal ideation. I mean, I have to tread lightly, low and slow. I mean, I believe I practice. I haven't coined it, but I call it slow therapy, because it's meant to be slow, and it's not for everyone, but when it is right for a person, it's really like a good fit. And that's the thing, not everyone is for everyone. And I tell people to definitely shop around until you find the therapist where you're like, yes, this is it. It feels like just a yes in the body. Like I vibe with this person. I can sense that I'm able to take my mask off with them. Because if the mask is on and what's really like, kind of, what are we doing here? We're kind of just running around playing games. That I've been so fortunate in that my clients have, for the most part, all been able to take off their masks and slowly but surely gone into it. So I use like various modalities like EMDR, but constructed awareness, ACT. I mean, I use a little bit of everything. It just depends on where the person is even that day. And we start to move through it and irrigate it, and be with all of these uncomfortable feelings, and be able to feel them even outside of therapy. So you're not no longer just pushing it down or hiding it away or saving it for some other time. I can't deal with it right now, I'm going to save it for another time.
Mm.
um, it's it's important to do it right here, right now. And often, even myself, I avoided it for a long time as well. But so often I hear like, wow, this wasn't like I thought it was going to be. Like, I wish I had done this sooner. We make an ant an elephant so often, and then we avoid. We'll do everything in our power just to avoid it. You choose the path of avoidance. But yeah, that's that's a little bit of what I do, and yeah, sometimes even prescribing different supplements if I see fit, but mostly encourage folks to get their nutrients from food and sun and minerals. Um, we can get a lot from what we already have access to. So just trying to make it as accessible, as easy as possible, as effortless, if you will, because this overall work does require commitment and effort. So yeah, trying to mitigate that as often as possible. Because right when we get a list of like, oh my gosh, she wants me to do this meditation, or I don't know, like this somatic exercise, or watch this documentary, like, if you're already feeling so overwhelmed by what you have going on, if I give you a list, you're more likely to push it away than start checking it off. Trying to
Mm.
remove, like, I'm all about, instead of to-do lists, I'm all about not to-do lists. Like, what are we not doing? What are we not doing anymore, so we have more space for what, yeah, what we are aligned with, what does excite us, what does bring us joy. Because joy is, I say, the antithesis of dis-ease. If we're in our joy and if we're in our curiosity, we're out of our fear. So things that bring on that curiosity and that joy. And so often with therapy too, like, we're not in therapy to like be with our pain and our grief as much as we are to be with our joy.
Right. Right. No, I couldn't agree more. And that's the one thing I love about my therapist. She's very similar to you. And right here recently, and this is the part of my personal growth. And the first 15, 20 minutes is like straight, like therapy, this, that, and the third, right? The last whole part of the session, I mean, I'm complaining about politics, world order, this, that, and the third. I mean, just everything in society in general. And, I mean, she just gives that safe space, and it's like, is helping the nervous system to kind of reset for, at their moment, because all of this stuff builds up, right? We have all of this stuff builds up. The body doesn't forget. And I always teach people that, we're like hot water heaters. And I love the way you described your practice, because, you know, if that pressure relief valve fails, we're going to do the same thing that the hot water heater does. And so we always have to find ways to uh, keep that pressure relief valve working, right, on a
Yeah.
constant, consistent basis. And sometimes it's just, as you said, having that right person, having that right approach. Uh, and I think that's really what it boils down to. And I love the fact, I do let me praise you for this. I love the fact that you don't, hope I say the word right, succumb to all the other major primary themes out there that Western medicine is pushing, right? Love the fact that you're so, um, I don't even know what the word to use is. I know it starts with an E, but like you pull from modalities and ideals and theories that are not mainstream. Does that make sense? I love
Yeah.
that, because you're really pushing the idea of a whole person approach, and
Mm.
it's tapping into. I love that you brought up sympathetic versus parasympathetic, and I think practitioners need to understand this more. Whether you're clinical, medical, whatever, don't matter. But I think it is about helping to get the um, parasympathetic nervous system activated more on a consistent basis. Because if we can do that, right, with our folks, including with ourselves, I think we can reduce the hospital admissions. I think we can reduce the crises caused. We can reduce I'm gonna throw some other ones out there, and I'm not trying to say everything is a blanket statement here, but I'm thinking in many areas we can reduce overdoses, domestic violence. We can reduce, you know, the suicidal, homicidal attempts, and I mean, just across the board in many areas, because,
Mhm.
like you said, too often the body is just responding, right? The body's going to respond whether I want it to or not. And the goal is for me to be able to have have a voice over that. Does that make sense on what I'm saying?
100%. 100%. And you know, I'm thinking like of a couple of things, right? It's like it's both all practitioners need to take a look at everything because so often too we're having a normal response to a very abnormal situation in our lives. Like it's important for us to see that and witness that. The world is a wild place right now and we are exposed to more information than ever before historically. Our nervous system has never received this onslaught of news, information, and whatnot. So we need to take that into account that all of our nervous systems are being activated to some degree. But when we have a history, of trauma and we haven't worked through it, healed it, whatever you want to say about that, those two things, I mean, will create a very hypervigilant nervous system. And that like impacts all areas of our lives. Um, it's so important. I forgot to say in my practice too, like I really encourage folks to see an integrative doctor because it's important that I know as a practitioner that that lane that I'm not driving in, someone else is. And like for example with Lyme disease, there's over 300 symptoms. People don't realize how many of those are mental health related. And mold exposure, if you have a sensitivity or allergy to mold in the home, certain types of mold, you can end up having mental health symptoms. So it's that integrative approach, in my opinion, is vital. It's not some like weird alternative route. It's just like why aren't we? My question is why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we looking at all aspects of a person's life? So, and with the Western approach too, sometimes I have clients who they need to go, for example, on an SSRI because their nervous system is just at a point where it really needs that help. We know that the efficacy increases if you're also receiving therapy at the same time. And just because you're on an SSR doesn't mean you can, but it doesn't mean you need to be on it forever too, right? You can you can titrate off of it. Like there's just I think it's important we know there's flexibility and there's a time and place for everything with exactly where we are and what we feel safe and comfortable with and willing to experiment with and feel safe. Feel safe with the person, the different doctors, the therapists, the coaches, anyone.
No, I think you're right. I think it's all about taking an integrated approach because I emphasize this, and I think this is where we've gotten out of touch
Hmm.
in Western medicine. Appeal for every damn meal. One of the things I love about one of the psychiatrists that I work with, he made the comment to me. He was like, "Oh, Kev, I'm going to uh, prescribe this versus this." And I'm like, "A vitamin?" He was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, well, listen, doc, I got to understand. How come?" He was like, "Well, because this medication is going to do the same thing the vitamin's going to do. And so instead of giving them a medication, right, that's going to, this, that, and the third, could have some more harsh symptoms, right, or side effects. Why not give them something that's natural and it's not going to have any severe side effects that the medication is going to be, potentially could give them. If I don't have to, I'm not going to do it, right? And so, and there's so many folks out there, medical clinical providers out there, that I think they missed the mark, right? Um, I've heard too many times, oh, it's all in your head, it's all in your head, it's all in your head. But I think the biggest part, right, like that's the quarter of the story. The other 75% of the story is the head is part of the body.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's all one functioning system when we take a step back and look at it.
Yeah. 100%. I feel like that is just such a gaslighting, lazy thing to say to a person because basically they're like, white flag, I don't know, this must be in your head. I'll let someone else deal with this instead of like taking that curious approach of like, what could this be? Can I bring another practitioner in for us to figure this out? I had a doctor, he's recently passed, and he was like my go-to doctor. I would send everyone to him because he could just look at you and just know what was going on. And I was really suffering at the time, and he said, you're a puzzle. You're a puzzle to solve. But luckily, I enjoy solving puzzles. And my nervous system just melted right there because until that point, doctors were just diagnosing, prescribing, and not actually being with what I had to understand it. And
Mhm.
that takes a special person, but we need we need more of that in this realm of medical care.
Right. Look, you just reminded me of my first primary care provider, and I'm gonna call her name because she's so freaking phenomenal. I love her. Her name was Brianna. She worked at First Health uh, in Pinehurst, North Carolina. My first 4 or 5 sessions, I'd go in her office, boo-hooing and crying and everything else. She was I think she's a PA. Yeah, she's a PA. And like, what about the last few visits with her when I first started, right? Like, not my last visit, but like one of that first 4 or 5 visits. She was like, I was sitting there boo-hooing and crying, snot slinging both ways. She was like, I think it's time for you to go see a therapist. But she would let me go in there because she knew that therapy wasn't her thing.
Mm.
Right. Hers was
Mm.
of more medical than clinical, but she would not. I mean, she would just go in there and let me sit, like literally just let me sit. And I mean, I can only imagine the notes that she was writing. Patient came in here crying like a 2-year-old, whatever. I don't know, but like I could just imagine what the notes would be like. But like she went as far as what she could on her ethical level, right? And she was like, "Yeah, Kev, you need to go see a therapist. Like, really need to encourage you to do that." All right, cool. And I listened. I listened, but she took that integrated approach, as you said. She
Yeah.
can't give me any counseling theory or skills, but she can, you know, give me, a listening ear. And
Yeah.
she took a very, like I say, a very integrated approach and brought in another practitioner who could assist.
Hmm. That's I love to hear that because like clear she allowed you the space to feel what you were feeling. I mean, there's a lot of medical anxiety and medical trauma out there. Like you finally get to the doctor's office and someone is willing to listen to you. It's like, oh my God, like, you know, the tears really start to fall. And I mean, that's a compliment. In my opinion, that's a compliment to her that your nervous system felt safe enough around her. And it's the reason, like, regardless of, if I need to refer someone to a psychiatrist, for example, or someone else, that they do take this integrative approach because a psychiatrist who's integrative is more likely to take the time to get to know you and talk to you about what is going on because with enough time maybe you realize this person can benefit actually from this vitamin rather than this medication, or this vitamin goes really well with this medication. But that takes time and getting to know the person and their body and their responses and reactions. I'm sorry, 15-minute increments. I like I can't imagine that is enough That is enough time. And I've been there. I've been the patient with the, receiving those 15, sometimes 5 minutes. Shoot, we're good. We don't need to change anything. Aren't you curious about how I've been really doing? No,
Yep.
just
No.
that level of feeling like someone actually truly cares about you. And I want to believe that most doctors go into the field with that in their hearts, that they want to help people. And I think it is important that they do learn about, they don't have to go through a mental health program by any means, but just taking courses, learning about and understanding, mental health and the role it plays in physical health. And yeah, when it is time to refer someone to a therapist and what kind, like what the different modalities are. I think that would be amazing.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's what we're missing in Western medicine. I think indigenous people get it right more so than, and I say indigenous people, indigenous medicine, right?
Yeah.
I think they get it right uh, more more so than Western medicine does, because I think by and large they do integrative, right? Like they do it more often than what Western medicine does. Um, I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand, and I've been trained in certain areas, and I'm not an expert at it by any means, but I've seen it unfold, and it's like, dude, like this is so. There was a treatment program in the state of Hawaii, and you've probably have heard of them. I don't remember the name of them, but it's something comprehensive treatment, something I
Mhm.
forget.
Mhm.
But you had the one treatment program had brought in an indigenous healer, and he unfortunately, it was sad that the his folks got rid, kind of disowned him and said, you can't be a healer for the indigenous people anymore. And
Mhm.
so what he did is he told him, he said, you can't take my teachings, you can't take anything that I have, my knowledge, etc. And so I think it's starting to kind of turn around for him a little bit. But one of the things that he talked about when we were out there in Seattle was how he came in, and he was talking to the doctor, the psychiatrist or medical director, and he was trying to explain to her, and she was like, "Listen, I trust you. Do what you got to do." And he was like, "You don't really want to know, like, you don't want to know what I'm about to do with the patients. I done told you I trust you. Do what you need to do."
Mhm.
And so so they would, he would take all the residents and he'd take them out there to the beach, and, they would all get buried in the sand. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Listen, I need you to help me understand, how the heck did you get Medicaid to pay for services? And how did you put in a damn note that, healer or whatever buried patient in the sand? Like, how do you write this stuff up clinically in a note? He never told us the behind scenes of it, but he was talking about how what they do and the outcome of what they've done. They've been able to reduce relapse rates by over 70% in the state of Hawaii. They were able to track research, like the outcomes of, I think it was over a year or 2 years. They proposed to the state of Hawaii, hey, we want Medicaid to pay for now, right? And it's interesting because Hawaii is one of the first states in the US to Medicaid now, to actually pay for your indigenous, practices, acupuncture, the stuff that they were doing, like the natural healing, practices. So it was very interesting to see. And the long-term outcome is exactly what we've been talking about, being connected with self.
Mhm.
And that is what the most important outcome is at that treatment program. And because of them, the whole state of Hawaii now Medicaid system pays for said services and on an outpatient basis.
Oh, I hope other states follow suit on that. And I think it's like it sounds like he was able to experiment and play and be with them human to human, which is incredibly healing. There was also a story about it was a psychiatrist in Hawaii, and I haven't fact checked to see how true this is. But apparently, it was in like some locked unit, locked like mental health facility, and he ended up practicing, and I can't recall the amount of days, um, the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, and was doing it with each patient. And apparently, all the patients healed from him doing this just on his own constantly. And again, I don't know how for how many days, but it's that prayer is also indigenous to Hawaii and just so powerful. I like to use it in my work as well. And if you haven't checked it out, I recommend checking out. There's a lot of videos with it as well, even with like some tapping. I love EFT tapping. For those not familiar, you're tapping on areas of the body that have pressure points that release cortisol and stress. Um, so getting to do both. So yeah, bringing in that, weaving in that wisdom that's been around for much longer than Western medicine. It's again, how can they meet each other in a harmonic way, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. And it's interesting. I love that you brought that up because two things here. I did a course when I was out in Seattle on, I think you said EFT, which is that tapping or whatever, because you tap here or something. And I forget, but it was so interesting because it's like I so want to learn more about that because where I work at, I already do traditional storytelling. Now
Mm,
I do mine by weaving bibliotherapy into it, but I would take an old story, right? A very long running story that's been around, and we'll read it together as a group and we'll talk about it. Because I can't remember like that type of like, I mean, it's just too much for me to remember. And plus, that's not my, like I don't remember, like, so I've got like multiple stories that are already written out. So, Uh, but I also want to say this too. It sounds like you and I might be talking about a similar program because when I was out there in Seattle with the same person, they were talking about the same thing. They were talking
okay.
about many things, and yeah,
Mm, mm. Yeah, this program just really sounds fantastic. And what we can do as practitioners in the interim is at the very least try to adopt some of that into our practice as we see fit. Like there's always room for growth, and like I can look back on the way I thought about things in the past, and I'm at a totally different place. Like it's important that we challenge ourselves and grow and increase our wisdom and understanding of things, because it's not possible for us to know everything, right? I don't know if it's possible at any point in this lifetime to know about everything. However, we can learn about a lot, and that's a very beautiful thing.
mm, you're not wrong. You are you are so not wrong. I think you're right. I think a lot of life goes back to being open minded to at least understand and learn. And that's the one thing I love about Doctor. I don't remember his name, but I know what it looks like. He practices and he's a naturopathic doctor in the U.S. and Canada. And
Mm.
I asked him because he was teaching class one day, and it was in an acupuncture class out there in Seattle, and they were talking about, like all of the stuff that we're talking about right now. And I'm like, and so I raised my hand. I'm like, yo, doc, I got a question. I said, look, man, I said, I can take all this stuff back and go to try to practice it. I said, but the first thing people going to argue with me is best practice, best practice, best practice. I'm
Mhm.
like, how the hell do I get past that argument? And he was like, that's because it's everything y'all do is best practice for Western medicine. He said, everything you're learning, at this conference is best practice and has been for thousands of years for indigenous people. And I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, it's been practiced
Mhm.
for thousands of years with indigenous people. And I'm like, mm, it's a beautiful argument. It's a
It's
beautiful
so
argument.
true. It's so it really challenges like our conditioning basically. And for example, I went to India to complete a panchakarma, which is think of it as like Ayurvedic Ayurvedic rehab. And I was there for about 2 months. And this is a 5,000-year-old medicine, similar to Chinese traditional medicine. 5,000 years old and going. And so like the methodology is tried and it's true. And it really forces me to like I like doing these things that force me to kind of surrender, right? My ego, if you will, to what I to
Ooh, I
what I
love
don't
that.
to what I don't know to be true. Just because it's evidence-based, like do, doesn't mean it encompasses these things that, like you said, have been around for so long. Evidence-based is not. Evidence-based requires, right, how much money, how much testing. Oftentimes there's not a lot of money in these medicines and these practices.
Right.
And even going to South America and getting medical treatments with shamans down there, sitting with medicine and experiencing that, having it be, in my experience, 20 years of therapy in one night. How does this? It's not quite making sense for what I learned and what I understand. And that's okay. That's okay. The fact is we remain open to the fact we don't know. Like literally the more I learn, the less I know. That's a
Oh,
famous, yeah, it's a famous quote, but it's so true. I I'm constantly surrendering to what I still have yet to learn and understand. And maybe I'll listen or watch this in 10 years time and go, "Wow." I know I understand so much more now, and I hope for that. I hope for that for you too.
ooh, I love it. Now,
Yeah.
before we end and before we call it a great day today, as far as like the recording and of course post recording too, I need that information on that Vedic training that you went to, because that sounds so interesting, and I think that's what people don't understand, right? Like Western medicine doesn't understand is if something's been around for quite a few thousand years, that still makes it best practice.
That's
Uh,
true. I never thought of it like that, but it's so
right,
true.
because what is best practice, right? Go back to the ideal, right, or the definition of what is best practice. Best practice means it's been practiced for so long,
Mm.
right? We know that in schizophrenia, in the treatment of schizophrenia, you have to prescribe some type of psychiatric medication, such as Haldol, right? Because it's been practiced, it's been tried and true for so long. But let's take a step back and look at medicine as a whole, right?
Mhm.
Right, not just Western medicine, but just medicine in general. Best practice is what's been practiced for so long. And Vedic traditions are actually, from my studies in Hinduism, and I consider myself to be a Hindu Buddhist, um, been around for 5,000 plus years. I mean, it's the oldest principles on the planet that we know of. It's the oldest practices that we know of. And this is what research also continues to show through archaeology and cultural, studies and all of that. Uh, it continues to predate itself. So I love that you brought that up. I'm very interested now in that information.
Yeah. I'm happy to provide it. It was, an intense but beautiful experience. I would say, I mean, since, you have studied Buddhism, Vipassana meditations, which is like a 10-day silent meditation retreat. They're free, dhamma.org. They're, well, donation based, I should say, but I like to say, a panchakarma is if Vipassana and ayahuasca had a baby, even though there's no, yeah, so that's what I mean by intense. And there's nothing psychoactive about what you're doing in the panchakarma, but in terms of the release, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, it just starts to come up, and that's the point. You are they see it as, akin to surgery, so it's it's beautiful, but it's very intense. And yeah, recently I did something else called neural therapy through an infusion. And that also was quite, they don't so much do it in the US. I think they're doing it in Mexico, they're doing it in Europe. Uh, but it actually, the point of it is to get you into a parasympathetic state to reset the nervous system. And doing that for the first time last week, I was like, wow, even though there's nothing psychoactive in it, it felt like it was because of how much I released, where I went into my stored memories. We're onions. We just every time we take off a layer, there's more and there's more and there's more, and that's what makes life interesting, right?
When I'm done with school, I think I'm gonna jump more into all of these areas we're talking about. I still got another 2 years roughly of, school left.
Woo!
Going for well, hold on, let me preface this. I've been going to school since February or March of 2013. I haven't stopped yet, but I took an ABD on a doctoral degree because I spent 30 about 30 grand in about 2 years, the last 2 years on that
Mm,
program, and spent my tires in the mud going nowhere. And so I
mm,
said, "You know what? I'm done. If I don't get through this, I'm done this time." And same thing happened. That happened 100 times before that, and I said, "You know what? Time to move on now." And then I was like Denzel Washington, and I said that if I'm gonna spend $30,000 on something, I'm gonna spend 30 grand and walk away with something. Right? So I found another program, and I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful program. So I'm grateful for that. So, but yeah, when I'm done with school, I want to get more into all of these areas on what we're talking about because
what's the program?
I'm doing uh, a dual MBA and MA in philosophy. It's at the University of Mary. It's a lot of Catholic philosophy that is brought into it, and it's actually very interesting because, and it's not just Catholic philosophy, but it's I mean that's probably 60% of the philosophy part, but it gives you a broad overview of philosophy, but it takes the ideal of business back into a a more broader approach, right? In the philosophical principles of business. Um, it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I love it because for me, like if we go back into even the field of psychology, what did the field of psychology come from? It was born out of philosophy. Well, philosophy, if we think about it, is everything we're thinking and talking about right now, right?
Mm,
Uh, and so for me, like, because you read about what this field of philosophy says or what this philosopher said, and you look at why they argue that, and then a lot of the assignments is if in the business world, if you had to take this and apply it to this, what would that look like or what does it mean or something of that sort. And then you get to critique philosophical thought leaders. too.
Mm.
So it's very interesting.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, no, it is, and I love the fact that it's very old school and very traditional.
Yeah.
A lot of the teachings are, a lot of the principles are. I mean, the business. So you have the philosophy school, which is accredited, and you have the business school, which is accredited. So they have a dual program, which the business piece of it is accredited, the philosophy piece is accredited, right? The program itself isn't accredited, like programmatic accreditation, but the programs that it is born from hold programmatic accreditation. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So it's very interesting. Really is. It really is.
Cool.
Yeah. So what I'm done with it, I want to get more into. There's a lot of goals I have, and this is part of it. I want to do existential training. I want because existential training is very philosophical based too, and not based as so much in Western medicine. So yeah, everything we're talking about, like I'm very intrigued with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hand you an entire list of actually my website in the resources section, it's very you'll see there's a lot of resources. But there's an area of retreats and the Panchakarma's on there, Vipassana's on there as like just a couple of options for people who are looking for something a bit more in depth.
I love it. Well, since you're bringing it up, and I know I can't hold you for 3 hours, tell us where the website is and where people can find you.
Yes. So www.beginwithintoday.com and at Begin Within Today across social media platforms. Um, yeah, come say hi.
I love it. I love it. Um, what is one thing you hope that people watching or listening to this will take away?
That I believe in your capability to heal. You have the capability to heal. Yeah.
All right. What is your call to action to people?
That's a really beautiful question, too. Two nice questions. I think find a way that feels good to you today to be with and irrigate your emotions, whether that's journaling or painting, writing, talking to someone you feel safe and comfortable with. just just one thing today for yourself.
I love it. I love it. Man, I've really thoroughly have enjoyed you being on the show today. It's been a phenomenal conversation.
Well, you also brought in the conversation and you're pretty cool. So thank you so much for having me
Yes,
on. And
we're the best podcast in the world. Woo! She just said it. I'm kidding. That's my ego.
what I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty good.
I
I love
appreciate
how
it.
organic it is. And
Thank
I
you.
think it probably helps many. And thank you to everyone who is tuned in and listened or watched. You're
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. And that's what we try to do. We did one show on where we were just so educationally driven, right? Like so like, you know, questions like it was just crapshoot. I mean, it really went south. And that's what made us think that we're go revert back to this. Let's just be completely generic. Let's just be completely like how we just did, right? And because it didn't work out for us like at all, it was just one of the worst episodes ever. Um, because the conversation had even come up during, right after that. Well, we're professionals because we work in the field as therapists, just that and the third, so on and so forth. And my response to him was, I ain't wearing a damn suit and tie on this some gun. I don't give a I don't care. I didn't want to be me. I'm not putting on my freaking therapist hat and just that and the third and trying to be super professional. Like, no. I said, even in my practice, I don't wear a suit and tie. I show up in a t-shirt and a pair of khaki pants. I mean, of course, it's got my employer on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, like, let's just stick with the generic free flow, free thought for all. And so I appreciate your compliment on that. That's the reason we try to stay in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah. You get to be you. It's like, how can we show up as clinicians if we are not ourselves, right? If we're also putting
Yeah,
on this mask, like
bingo.
telling someone else to take off their mask when you still have yours on doesn't quite doesn't quite make sense to me. So,
Right. 100%.
we're humans first.
I've been screaming that. I always say that. I always scream that from the top of my lungs.
Yeah.
Anyways, to wrap up today, I
We could
really
just talk
appreciate.
for hours. I know.
Oh, right, right. I could talk to you for like, another 3, 4 hours. Like, oh my God, thank you seriously for coming on.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it. Mm. Folks, I'm gonna end the live and then I'm gonna BS with her some more until she's got to go or whoever's got to go. It doesn't matter. But check us out. We're across the board on so many social media platforms. And of course, follow her too. While you're following her, you can follow us. And while you're following us, you can follow hers. Vice versa. uh, Thank you.